Quick update from the Hillside garden. So we're into spring, a very dry, arid spring. It's actually scary. We've had like 3 really even half decent rains all spring. It's been about 10 days since we had anything now, and maybe there's going to be something today, but doesn't seem very likely. So what's going on? How do we sort of create some resiliency in this kind of climate? Well, one thing I tried, I don't think I videoed this, was to start turning the orchard into more of a food forest with guilds planted around the trees. Now this, believe it or not, is some sort of guild. This is the first one I tried this winter. I laid out cardboard, put a little bit of compost down. I haven't got wood chips, otherwise I'd use wood chips. And I've left this black locust in, which I originally thought was a weed, and then I realised how useful it is and how it growing in proximity to this apple tree could be really useful. The apple tree is full of apples, and I need to thin them out because they'll just be useless and small otherwise. I hate that kind of maintenance job, but it's got to be done, I guess. And then in the sort of understory, there's various things going on. Really, this is just me trying to see what will work. I mean, there's some nettles that just sprang up, but I'm just going to leave them. There's a very dodgy looking comfrey plant, the seedling. That's the only seedling I managed to find that actually, where the seed actually sprouted. We'll see. Comfrey there, hopefully. He's actually growing a new leaf. We got strawberries dotted around, you might be able to see. We've got a lot of garlic there in the middle. The thing I want to point out though is it's all a bit random. I just want to see what will work in which orientation. The sun's coming from sort of over here and round this way during the day, so this is more or less the north side, the darkest side. I want to see what grows where the best. Do strawberries grow best with a little bit less sun, with a bit more sun, and just see what works. And what I do like to see is that it's nice and green under this tree, quite lush. It hasn't really grown up too much yet because of the cardboard, but you've got to, I think, in this climate, in these arid climates, you've got to create some sort of, you've got to create these microclimates, and I think these guilds are the way to do it. Here's a raspberry that was bare root this winter, so I don't expect too much off that, but I'm hoping that this is an environment it'll want to grow in the future, and it can spread for all I care. This sort of apple tree, black locust guild thing is part of this wider sort of context of what I might start calling the food forest, or that was never the plan. This was completely overgrown and I didn't know what to do with it. I was trying to let it grow wild, wanted wild flowers. There were no wild flowers, it was just grass and rubbish. And I came through, which I wouldn't normally do, but I came through with a rotavator and just turned it all over and planted clover, which unfortunately I don't know if much of it's come up because we've had 0 rain really for clover to come up, and I might have to reseed it in autumn. But grass is coming back up, and I'm going to kind of mow this and maybe create some paths through here, and I'm going to stop looking at this as an orchard and start sort of treating this as a nice sort of open area where we could maybe sit, and where trees are going to start growing up gradually. And probably, there's a wild rose. Around this sort of perimeter that they're just the sweepings of the dried grass and stuff that I rotavated up, and the roots and stuff. I created this perimeter. So around the perimeter, I'm thinking to plant maybe sea berries. I've got a few seedlings on the go, but they're not ready really this year. Stick some elder sticks in the ground this winter as well, and just create a kind of hedge around this whole area, and inside it there won't be too much going on. There'll be a bit of clean space, but we'll have this peach tree, no, that's a nectarine, bare root, peach over there. There's some amaranth which I planted. I really didn't think this would be a good spot for it, but you never know till you try. And this is about the driest spot in the garden, and they seem to be doing fine, so I'm really pleased because they're the only ones that have come up basically. And this sort of swale along here, mini swale or section of swale, this peach tree actually didn't make it, so it's just a swale at the moment. But I thought I'd take the opportunity and plant a few lettuces and brassicas and things on the sort of shaded side of it, see if that does anything in this heat, because this should be all wet under there, you know. So there should be maybe some moisture for them to access. We'll see, it's just an experiment. And I can see popping up here, this is all borage. So of all the wildflowers and stuff I planted, again, the drought's just played havoc with that. But I think at least the borage has come up. And there's some peas I put here as well. Look, peas. I'm just going to let the kids come out and try and forage for peas. And then over this side, we've got this chestnut tree, which is doing really well. But its partner over here is a little bit slow. And, you know, they need to cross-pollinate, really. So I'm hoping that will hurry up. And, of course, eventually they're going to grow huge. And this isn't really going to be a kind of open space anymore. It's going to be very much a shaded space. But will that happen in my lifetime? Not sure. Over here is the cherry tree that has been wildly successful this year. You just never know till you plant multiple varieties what's going to actually succeed. Okay, we've got a few of those big bugs there. I forget what they're called. But hopefully you can see the cherries very well against the sun. We've got loads of them. They're absolutely fantastic. No treatment, no sprays, no nothing. Yes, these bugs are doing a number on them, but I think they only attack the rotten ones, I think, and as long as we're picking them, they can have their share as well. And then over here, I've got a couple of pawpaws that I planted this winter, which I'm very happy to see have come up. The guy who grows them, that I ordered them from, grows them from seed, so they're not like a name variety or anything, but I'm really pleased they're growing there. And they say they like a bit of shade in their early years, so that's cool, and hopefully they'll grow up nicely next to these apple trees. And well, if I had to choose between pawpaw and apple, I might well choose the pawpaw, so let's root for the pawpaws, eh? Up this way we have another of the sort of winter swales I dug, or mini swales. This was a Williams pear, which is struggling, to be honest. It leafed out and it did flower, and it's got plenty of water. I can feel the mulch is doing its job, but yeah, I'm not super hopeful, but let's see. But sunflowers popped up by the looks of it, more borage, strawberries, and I've got a couple of what I think will be winter squash, pumpkins of some sort, so I'm looking forward. They're a little bit late, but again, just the lack of rain has just set them back so far. I had to replant, really, because the ones I planted, I don't think any of them came up, just because of the lack of rain. Now up here is the section, the main one I did a video about, which I'll put a link up there, hopefully, if I remember. The main sort of swale thing I dug, where I planted a bunch of gooseberries and lettuce and whatnot. Well, the gooseberries have come right up, all of them. I said I wasn't really into gooseberries, but I'm going to get gooseberries anyway. Gooseberries, they grew fantastically, and they're going to, cover this basically. Here is a butternut squash. If you remember, I shoved some seeds in the ground along with the flesh of the butternut, and there we go. I think there are 2 plants there, but I'm just going to leave them. I think they'll have plenty of nutrition and water in there, and we'll get some butternut off those this year. Unfortunately, the persimmon I was so excited about has not leafed out. It was a bare root plant, and the only thing I can say is that when I give it a little scratch, it's still, I don't know if you can see that, it's still green in there. So whether that will leaf out belatedly, I don't know. I'd be disappointed. To be honest, they're quite expensive. Like, I can't keep buying new ones, so yeah. But I guess I'll have to if it doesn't make it, and just be a little bit more careful about how I plant it out next time. And this is a hazelnut that I planted out as well, which I'm also not super pleased with. I'm pretty sure it's nothing to do with it being planted on the swale. I think that's probably the only thing that's keeping it alive. The top didn't leaf out at all, but it has shot out from the bottom, so, well, I mean, that's better than nothing, but obviously that set me back a lot, because I wanted a tree that's this big, not that big. So that's another couple of extra years. And there's some horseradish I stuck in the ground as well. Oh, and these are the Jerusalem artichokes, Jerusalem fartichokes, as some like to call them. They always do well. You don't have to worry about those. They come up whether you want to or not. And here are some very weedy looking asparagus, and I just cannot seem to get the asparagus. Like, these were planted from seed. Some are 5 years. I think this one's 5 years old from seed, and it's still, I mean, you'd expect by now be able to pick something. I had I picked one spear, and that's it off that one, and I left the rest. I think what's happening is they're getting drowned out by the grass here, so that's why I put the hay down now, to give them a fighting chance this year of doing their thing, and the crown's developing properly, so in future years we get a bit more of a result from those. Quickly show you this as well. Just turned the compost over. Of course, we feverishly compost here, but it takes a fair while to fill up one of these big bins, which is about a cubic metre, or a bit less, maybe more like about a cubic metre. Turned it all over in here 2 days ago. This was up to the top. It's already sunk down, and it's ridiculous. I've never had it that hot. 70 degrees centigrade. It's actually 260 Fahrenheit. That's actually too hot for compost, but it'll kill all the weed seeds, and they'll still be good, I think. And we'll get some. And I've already seen in there some fantastic compost in there. We just need to get it properly, integrated and mixed up. So maybe just around here, I'll show you as well. Another raspberry right next to the compost heap, and in the third compost bin, I even planted a couple of pumpkin seeds which haven't come up yet. I'm thinking just to let them grow out of this compost, because I don't think we're going to fill this second one. It'll settle down, and I'll put some more in, and by the end of the year, it'll be full. But I think we can grow pumpkins in this one in the meantime. And around it, you'd think there'd be enough fertility, right? And probably moisture as well. So hopefully this raspberry will do well. I've got strawberries growing around here as well. I really want to up the game with strawberries and multiply them all over the garden. And I'm working on it. And there's some under here as well, under the tree, which you can't see. And black currants in the partial shade behind the compost bins. Black currants, by all accounts, don't mind a bit of shade. And one last thing, on a hillside, in an arid environment like this, we're trying to trap some water. We're trying to stop the runoff, collect some fertility, collect some moisture that will be retained in the soil. And one way I think of doing it, apart from swales, is by just upping the game with organic material under the trees. And this is what I've just been leaving these sticks and prunings and stuff underneath. And look how the environment changes underneath the tree. This is a quince tree. Suddenly you get all these kind of woodland things growing, and it's a completely different environment. It's much more green, much more lush, and I'm sure it's stopping some of that runoff coming from down the hill. So I think that's something I'm going to continue looking at. We don't want this. This is my neighbour's garden. This is what we don't want. Bare grass, bare trees just standing in rows. That's not interesting to me, and I don't think it's the future, not in this arid climate. He's going to have to water these constantly. He's going to have to mow constantly. He's going to have to spray the insects constantly as well. That's not what I'm really in this for. I want it to grow naturally and wild, and hopefully have some resilience, have some diversity, and put in the minimum of work, hopefully. So that's me signing off from the Hillside compost bin and the Hillside garden. Till next time.